A'udhu billahi min shaitanir rajeem. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. The month of fasting brings with it enormous blessings and food for thought. One aspect which is quite often overlooked is the impact of fasting on our collective life. We live in a society and even a family living somewhere in Nebraska or somewhere in Iceland may be isolated, yet the family itself is a unit which requires finding out how to relate oneself with his wife, children, parents, and so on and so forth. Therefore, there is hardly a human society where we can overlook or disregard presence of its environment. Fasting in that sense is something unique because apparently it looks as if it is designed for personal purification, but essentially its purpose is to create a social change, to bring an ethical revolution in human society. This is why we find that in the month of fasting there is great emphasis on all those aspects that include human interaction. Ahadith provide us plenty of guidance that relate with how we deal with individuals, with the state, with institutions during the month of Ramadan. We find that Prophet, peace be upon him, very clearly mentioned that if you are fasting and during the fasting you come across a conflict with someone, and that conflict leads towards even using harsh words or showing fists, then immediately to mend the situation, whoever is fasting should say only one word, I am fasting, and that means I cannot respond to your aggression, I cannot fight, I cannot encourage any kind of violence. Similarly, we find that it creates an environment of its own. Therefore, in the month of fasting, it's a month which overflows with human concerns. To help a person who is needy in the month of fasting is highly encouraged, because one single penny given to help a person is evaluated equal to 7,000 or 700,000 pennies in terms of reward. This multiplication of reward of doing something good to other people again creates a society where people are aware of needs of others, their problems and difficulties, and not only that, but they try to solve those problems. The very spirit behind late evening prayers is this collectivity, and therefore any Muslim community anywhere in the world is expected to have a reciter of the Quran who has memorized the Quran, and then late evening prayer or after Isha prayer they stay for another hour and a half or 2 hours listening to the Quranic recitation in small units of 2 rak'ah each. Sometimes they make 8 long rak'ahs or 8 long units in which they cover around 1/30th part of the Quran or one juz, or in some cases they make 20 small segments or rak'ahs where they try to cover same quantum of the Quran. So in 1 month they are able to listen and revise the whole Quran, which consists of 30 ajza or 30 paras or 30 sections. Therefore, this evening prayer again brings the whole community at one point, and when they meet together, they not only listen to the Quran, but they also try to understand its meaning. Therefore, one of the persons would like to summarize for those who can understand Arabic what is said in that recitation, and then when they listen to recitation of the Quran, they are able to appreciate its meaning. Similarly, the environment in the month of Ramadan is dominated by development of human feelings. A hadith tells us that if you have hired a person to do a job in the month of Ramadan, try to not be so much demanding on him, but let him do things easily, and if you can give a relief, better for you, which means that dignity of labor, and at the same time a desire that whatever is being done in the month of fasting should not be taxing for a person, but something which can be very easily afforded by an individual. If this attitude is encouraged for 30 days or one whole month, it is very natural that it becomes our habit. The purpose of fasting in all these collective manners is that ultimately whoever is fasting becomes a more civilized, more humane, more sensitive person towards needs of others, and after this whole month of fasting one is able to contribute his or her share in enhancement of community, in development of fair and just attitude among people, in trying to be very dynamic person who is always prepared to solve problems of others, and in this way the whole society is being changed. We also find that this is the month in which more learning of the Quran takes place, and as such an ethical change starts progressing in human being. Every single page of the Quran is filled with ethical instructions, fulfillment of promise, improvement of quality, desire for excellence, doing things in a balanced manner, trying to come up with innovative ideas. All these aspects are within the Quranic ethics dominant features, and therefore when a person reads or listens to Quran with emphasis on these aspects, then he or she is bound to consider how in our society we can bring culture of excellence, culture of knowledge, culture of tolerance, culture of balance, culture of moderation, how we can be more helpful to individuals. The very concept that in the month of fasting try to find out who are hungry, who are in bad health, who are in need of any support by way of giving them dress or shelter, indicates that month of fasting is essentially for improving our social habits, social behavior, bringing social change in society. This is why you find that when Prophet, peace be upon him, made his migration to Madinah Munawwarah, first thing he did was to create a brotherhood among those who were living in Medina and those who migrated. One person from the Ansar and one person from the Muhajirin was declared as brother. This cohesiveness, social integration, creating unity of hearts and minds was the objective of this ikha or ukhuwa. In the month of fasting, same value is inculcated, and therefore a family living in a big city like Istanbul or Jakarta or anywhere else would like to prepare breakfast in the evening, and a small bowl or a dish will be sent to the neighbor just as a gesture of brotherhood, and some other day the neighbor will also share what they have cooked for their iftar with their neighbor. This exchange of food and gifts is not just a physical exchange of what you like or what you have made as a very delicious dish, but it is a matter of love and compassion and concern. When a person shares food, then the person regards you as a member of family. And that family culture is developed in the month of fasting by way of mutual visits and iftar, not for any material benefits, but simply to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Therefore, all these social behavioral changes ultimately serve the purpose which was given in Surah Al-Baqarah when the month of fasting was made obligatory, that you may become Allah conscious. لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ. This concept of taqwa keeps on occurring again and again in every human activity. How I can achieve taqwa? By helping my neighbor. How I can achieve taqwa? By helping a person who is far off in a land where some problems have arisen. Say for example, presently the Burmese Muslims who are facing extreme discrimination based on religion and culture in their own country. For such persons who are displaced, for those who are discriminated, this month demands that globally people come forward, irrespective of their faith and culture. They respond to human need, and human need should compel them to come up with positive steps, with assistance programs, with help needed for those persons who are in distress, and that's how an ethical change is brought in society. If fasting was simply a matter of self-purification, there was no need at all to link it with social transformation. It should have led those who believe to retire in isolation and individually increase spirituality. But every single aspect of social living in Ramadan denies this concept and tells us it's not for just individual salvation or spiritual elevation, but it is for bringing change in society, change in attitude, change in level of tolerance, change in concern for others, and ultimately trying to create a society where people help each other on the basis of pleasing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This, in other words, becomes a training program, a duration in which consciously and actively every believing male and female, child and youth and aged person would like to contribute his or her share in making a new society with new feelings, with new relations created among human beings around them. Even those who may not be Muslims are welcomed in this month. Quite often, people invite their neighbors who may not be Muslims, but join them in breaking their fast, so they understand how Muslims celebrate at the end of the day when they are breaking their fast, with a piece of date, with a glass of milk, with a glass of juice, with a very simple food, not something which is very much rich, but just enough for human body. With all that simplicity, it wants the warmth of love and cooperation to be shared with people. Therefore, in the month of Ramadan, it's not a matter of just personal purification, it's a matter of social change, social development, bringing a new approach in society where people join together in establishment of truth, justice, liberty, freedom and tolerance. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make our month of fasting in true sense a month in which we create a model situation for others, and even those who may not be believers in Islam find out with our behavior and conduct how this faith brings a change in life and how this can bring a change in the whole world. Wa akhir da'wana rabbil alamin.